Okay, this is a reaction video. This is called Arsenal versus Tottenham: Roots of the Rivalry. Now, I am a soccer fan or a football fan, as most people who've watched my channel know, and I am a fan of Arsenal. Now, I've never been to England, as most of you know who've watched my channel. Love to go there, but again, this is there's a rivalry in my where I live. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and in Columbus, Ohio, it's the Ohio State University versus the University of Michigan. I don't believe, as much as there's a rivalry there in college football, that there's the same kind of rivalry like there is around the world. This goes a lot deeper and is a lot more. How can I put it? More, I guess, personal would probably be the word I would use. Just because the way people take it. Arsenal versus Tottenham: Roots of the Rivalry.
Arsenal versus Tottenham, one of the Premier League's most heated rivalries, dividing the north of London, but with roots in the south.
Yeah, Arsenal came from the south. Woolworth Arsenal, I believe, they came from the south and came to the north of London, and that's what that's what the Tottenham fans say. They aren't even from North London, and to me, I think that's kind of, who cares? That was years ago. That was so many years ago that move was made. It's silly to get upset about. But again, I'm not a Tottenham fan, so I'm not gonna get too upset over it.
Hey there, I'm Adrian, and welcome to Rabona TV's Roots of the Rivalry, the series where we take a look at the shared history of the two clubs involved, the initial reason as to why they dislike each other, and sprinkle in a few more reasons for discontent along the way. It goes.
One has to think Saul Campbell is going to come in on this. I got to think that if you don't follow the sport or you don't know much about English football, Saul Campbell is a name that's going to be on the lips of a lot of Tottenham fans in a very negative way, and Arsenal fans in a very positive way.
Without saying, but this isn't a recounting of every single event that's occurred between these two teams, just the more important ones that explain the division, or at least contribute to it. Alright, let's look at how the two teams came to be, starting back in 1882 with Tottenham Hotspur FC. Apologies for the rhyme there. Well, actually, when they were founded by some members of the Hotspur Cricket Club, they were simply known as Hotspur FC. Like many other clubs in England, the football team was formed in order for the members to have a sport to play in the winter while the conditions for cricket weren't ideal. Later on, the founding members, led by Bobby Buckle, called upon John Ripshire from All Hallows Church to be the president of the club and helped to develop it into a legitimate football club for the community. However, given that there was already a club called London Hotspur FC, they changed their name to Tottenham Hotspur FC in 1884. 1 year later, in 1885, Spurs played their first competitive match against St Albans, whom they smashed 5-2, wearing their then club colours of light blue and white. In fact, Tottenham changed their club colours quite frequently, at one point playing in red and navy, then in yellow and brown, and finally, in 1898, they switched to white shirts and navy shorts.
And they stayed with that through the years, and anybody who knows Tottenham Hotspur, that they're very known by look. If you see a team white and navy, it immediately think Tottenham Hotspur.
Now, Spurs moved to their present-day home in 1899, and though they played with the idea of calling it Gilpin Park or Percy Park, the ground was referred to as White Hart Lane. Some say the name was chosen due to White Hart Lane, the street, running along the west of the stadium, while some believe.
Of course, they don't play there now, but White Hart Lane was, anybody who, again, whether you're an Arsenal fan or Tottenham fan, White Hart Lane. If somebody says they're playing at White Hart Lane, that means Tottenham's playing as the home team.
I believe that it was referred to White Hart Lane due to a local pub called White Hart Pub, being the local meetup for Spurs fans before their matches. But back to their competitive history, as Spurs won their first FA Cup in 1901. It's important to note that at this point, Spurs were still a non-league club. They hadn't been admitted into the Football League. That wouldn't come until 1908. But in 1901, Spurs became the first and only non-league club in the history of the FA Cup to win the trophy, beating.
And that's got to be something, a point of pride for Spurs. Sorry, Arsenal. You get it.
Sheffield United 3-1 in a replay. As I just mentioned, in 1908, Spurs were officially part of the Football League, starting in the second division and gaining promotion immediately as champions in the 1908-09 season. I think this is actually a good place to pause on Spurs for a second, as now we have to leave North London to see where and when Arsenal was founded. In October of 1886, a Scotsman named David Danskin wanted to form a football club with some of his friends from the Woolwich Arsenal Armament Factory in Woolwich, London, which is on the southern bank of the River Thames. With the arrival of a couple of former Nottingham...
Yeah, Woolwich. I said Woolworth. I don't know why I said Woolworth. That's an American, my American coming out. But Woolwich Arsenal, and they were in the south.
Forest players to the factory, Danskin and 15 others all pitched in to buy a football. They temporarily referred to themselves as Dial Square, the name of one of the workshops at the Woolwich Arsenal, and won their first ever match against Eastern Wanderers 6-0 in a friendly. By the way, for those who were previously unfamiliar with Arsenal's foundational history, the cannon on their club badge and, well, their name in general makes more sense now, no? Following their victory over Eastern Wanderers while sitting at the Royal Oak Pub on December 25th, 1886, Danskin and co. decided to call themselves Royal Arsenal, a name that combined their meeting place, the Royal Oak Pub, with their place of work, the Arsenal. And it's here where the first North London derby occurred, except at the time, it wasn't a North London derby at all, but a friendly meeting between Tottenham Hotspur FC and Royal Arsenal in 1887. Spurs were leading 2-1, but the match was abandoned due to the loss of light. Remember, floodlights were scarce back then, and the first permanent floodlights at a stadium didn't come around until 1950 when...
So you could technically say it was no contest. Probably weren't playing with the same intensity that they play now, but I'll give it to Spurs. He won the first one, so 2-1, even though the game wasn't completed.
When the Dell, Southampton's former home, became the first stadium in England to have them installed permanently. They still needed to sort out kits, so the two club members that formerly played for Nottingham Forest, that I mentioned, contacted their old club to ask if they had some kits they could spare. Forest kindly agreed and sent red kits to the newly formed Royal Arsenal, who, by the way, changed their name to Woolwich Arsenal in 1893. The club then became the first London-based team to turn professional and were included in the Football League's second division, where they would stay until 1904 when they secured promotion. 5 years later, they meet with Tottenham Hotspur FC in their first ever competitive match together, which Arsenal won 1-0. Unfortunately for them, hard times would hit Arsenal financially, bankrupting the club in 1910, though it was saved by two local businessmen named Henry Norris and William Hall. But they couldn't save them from relegation in 1913. Mm-hmm. And it was here that the rivalry truly began, as Norris and Hall decided to move the club from Woolwich and settled upon...
Yeah, 1913 they moved it from from south to North London, and that's still a bone of contention. These guys, just moved to the north of London, and that's enough to, it created a rivalry that's still going on to this day.
On North London, most notably Highbury, Arsenal's historic former ground, which was just 4 miles from White Hart Lane. Tottenham were, of course, unhappy about the invasion of their territory. They were livid with Arsenal FC, who had dropped Woolwich from their name in 1915, by the way. Even now, you'll hear some Tottenham fans mentioning how Arsenal aren't even a North London club, and they should go back to Woolwich, where they belong. And this, in essence, is the main factor as to why Spurs started to hate Arsenal. The simple fact that they even exist within North London, when they aren't even from there in the first place. I'll expand on this a little bit later, but let's continue with some of their shared history first. If Spurs were unhappy with the foreign invaders from Woolwich then, they were extremely unhappy with them in 1919 once the First Division returned to action following the First World War. So, in the 1914-15 season, Arsenal was playing in the Second Division and finished 6th, while Spurs were in the First Division and finished dead last. Back then, promotion-relegation was just 2 up and 2 down. However, following the war, the First Division was to be expanded by 2 teams, which bore the question, do the bottom 2 from the 1914-15 season get to stay up, those 2 teams being Chelsea and Spurs? If you'd asked Spurs, then yes, they should have been allowed to do so, but it went to a vote. Chelsea were voted to stay up in the First Division, despite finishing just 1 spot above them, as I said, as the belief was that Liverpool and Manchester United actually fixed a match on the final day of the season in order to assure that the Mancunian...
You get to see how these things all play out like that. They fixed a match, blah, blah, blah.
...would remain in the First Division, and send Chelsea down to the second division. The other team that was voted to take the final spot in the first division, Arsenal, despite finishing in 6th in the second division, as you'll remember. Now, the reason as to why Arsenal were voted to stay up could be seen as simple or murky, depending on who you ask.
Probably simple if it's from an Arsenal standpoint, probably murky from a Tottenham Hotspur stance. Because if you're going down and they're going up, this is still a bone of contention to this day. Okay, if they thought, well, we it's over and done with. This is something that, this is still a bone of contention today.
If you'd ask Spurs fans at the time, they would say that Arsenal chairman Henry Norris used his influence to get the other members to vote for his club. Some say he used some shady tactics as well. But Arsenal fans, and quite frankly many news outlets at the time, pointed to the fact that Arsenal had been part of the first division for such a long time, and they showed great loyalty to the league, and that was the reason as to why they were chosen over the
Yeah, and I don't think the Spurs fans accepted that.
likes of Tottenham. Either way, Tottenham won the second division, and the stage was set for our first true North London derby. And this is when the passionate, fiery, sometimes toxic, and sometimes violent nature of the North London derby really came into its own. After feeling as though they were dealt an injustice and being sent to the second division, Spurs came back up with a vengeance. And one season later, on January 15th, 1921 at White Hart Lane, Spurs defeated the Arsenal 2-1. From here on out, there was nothing but bad blood between the sides. That is, until the Second World War came around. Now this sort of goes against the whole point of this video series, as this next bit brought the clubs together just a little bit, but
yeah, World War II, I could see them getting together. Now, this is something that I know a little bit about this rivalry, a little bit about because I've seen a lot of from the Arsenal standpoint. I've not seen a lot of it from the Tottenham standpoint because I'm not a Tottenham fan, and being an Arsenal fan, I could care less what happened with Tottenham. But this is still fascinating to me.
But it's an interesting piece of trivia, so let's talk about it anyway. With the Second World War going on, Highbury Stadium was actually used as an air raid precaution stronghold and was in fact bombed, with the south bank of the stadium being completely destroyed.
Those bloody Germans bombed my Highbury. Those bloody Germans.
So, during this time, football did actually continue in the country, though not via the English Football League First Division. So, Arsenal was forced to play all of their matches at White Hart Lane. 133 matches total.
Well, that is say something. I'll give Tottenham. Look, Arsenal was World War II. The country's coming together, so you have to make some concessions. And it was awful nice of Tottenham to allow Arsenal to use the stadium.
The fans, of course, didn't like each other, but when your country is embroiled in a war and your city is getting bombed by the Germans, it puts things into perspective, as the likes of Ancelotti and Arrigo Sacchi and even Pope John Paul II have echoed, quote, "Of all the unimportant things in life, football is the most important."
Right. That's right. That's what I think it was Shankly who said football is a matter of life and death. No, it's much more important than that. But
end quote. And I think that sums up the situation pretty well here. Yeah, we hate each other on a footballing level, but we're all part of this country, and we can put our rivalry aside. For now. Because following the war, they went right back to hating each other. From here on out, pretty much every clash between the sides was full-blooded. So let's go over a few of the matches and events that contributed to the ire and the bantering back and forth between these two clubs. First off, there's May 3rd, 1971, the final day of the First Division season. Leeds United had already played their final match 2 days earlier, having defeated Nottingham Forest 2-0, and were at the top of the table. So the equation was simple. If Arsenal win their final match, they'll win their 8th First Division title. Who are they playing? Spurs, of course. Where are they playing? At White Hart Lane. Tottenham striker Martin Chivers was on a tear that season, finishing behind only West Brom's Tony Brown in the scoring standings, and would love nothing more than to defy their rivals of the title. Well, unfortunately for Chivers, Spurs, and all of their fans, it was another prolific striker in Arsenal's Ray Kennedy who would conquer the day, giving Arsenal a 1-0 win at White Hart Lane and the First Division title.
And that is still, I remember when Arsenal won the championship again in 2004, I believe it was 2004. 2004 was the last time they won it. They won it at White Hart Lane with a 2-2 draw. And, I remember them putting up the banner. We won it at White Hart Lane back in '71, and now they did it again in 2004. They also had the Old Trafford one from 2002, where they won it up against 1-0 on Sylvain Wiltord's goal. And but yeah, I can see that this is being a bone of contention. And out of the 2004, well, I'll wait till we get to Sol Campbell.
The match winner, the championship winner.
Now, that wouldn't be the only time that Arsenal would secure a league title at White Hart Lane, as they also managed to do so in 2004. Already, just saying Arsenal plus 2004 should send your brain to one thing and one thing only.
Sol Campbell. Oh, yeah,
their invincible season.
Or invincible, well, yeah, that too.
On the 25th of April 2004, Arsenal were almost a sure thing to win the title already. It was just a matter of when they would do it, and if they would retain their unbeaten status for the season. And in the end, they held on for a 2-2 draw and got the point that they needed in the home of their rivals for the second time. 33 years.
Yeah, there's Edu, who's the club's sporting director, or I think it's the sporting director, Thierry Henry, Ashley Cole. It's like Dennis Bergkamp in the background there, and Robert Pires.
After the first instance. And no, the Arsenal fans would never let the Spurs faithful forget it.
And you saw
the worst part, one of the players in Arsenal's back line, which leads us to our next bit of banter. The year is 2001, and Arsene Wenger calls a press conference, entering with his classic smirk when...
There's actually a video on YouTube about this from Arsenal's perspective. I'm going to go over this before he does. And everybody thought that the signing was going to be Richard Wright. And David Dean, who was in Arsene Wenger, basically pulled one over on the press. Now, Sol Campbell had left Spurs. He was out of contract. He was a free agent, go wherever he wanted to. And I remember Inter Milan, Brazilian Ronaldo wanted him to come to Inter Milan. There were all these, he could have gone up to Old Trafford. There was all these different places that Sol Campbell could have gone to. And the one place, that a Tottenham Hotspur player who said he would never, ever do this would be North London to get with Arsenal. And they basically had late night meetings, and the decision was made that Sol Campbell was going to sign for Arsenal. And there's a guy, I forget his name, he walks in there, I guess the press agent for Arsenal at the time, shall I print out these these things, letting know about press releases for Richard Wright? No, David said, you should come over to Arsene Wenger's office. So he comes to Arsene Wenger's office. He walks in and he's confronted with Sol Campbell. He goes, I thought you were going to be Richard Wright. And Sol Campbell just looks at him and says, sorry, mate, I can't play goal. And yeah, this is probably one of the biggest biggest still to this day, people in Tottenham really if you're a Hotspur fan, Sol Campbell is a bad name to say. They really don't like him.
When he has something up his sleeve, saying that he had someone to introduce to the media, and he introduced Sol Campbell. A complete blindside for not only Spurs fans, but Arsenal fans, and, to be fair, to English football fans in general, as there was absolutely no rumblings that the England international would trade North London clubs. No media leaks, no rumours prior to unveiling, nothing. Solskjaer Jeremiah Campbell, a Spurs general who turned down a contract that would have made him Spurs' most highly paid player ever at the time. People always talk about how...
Yeah, this guy Luis Figo went from Barcelona to Real Madrid, but I think, I hope what he was going to say here is that Sol Campbell's was probably more of a backstab. I mean, we have the Tottenham fans by pulling that knife right out of their back thing. I believe this is yours, Sol, for what you did to us, and I can understand that. Look, I do remember because we were at Sky Sports News in the United States at that time, and there was no indication whatsoever that he was going to go to Arsenal. It was just, I remember seeing, I couldn't believe really what I was seeing. I remember seeing Arsene Wenger walk, and Sol Campbell was just behind him as they walked out, for pictures. And it was like, what?
Luis Figo going from Barcelona to Real Madrid is one of the biggest acts of treachery in football. And it is. But Campbell is arguably a far more treacherous case in the eyes of English football fans, most notably Spurs fans, given the fact that he was a product of the Spurs Academy and went on to captain the side. It would be like if Messi went to Real Madrid. Maybe not Messi, at least not on footballing ability, but you know what I'm saying.
Look, Messi would never go. It's even shocking that Messi's playing for Paris Saint-Germain at this time. But I've tried. Now, I grant my knowledge of football really doesn't begin till the 2000s. The late 1990s, 2000s. So, but when I talk about players who've played for specific, Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo, played for both teams. Played for Barcelona and then played for Real Madrid. But those were, he went to Inter Milan and came back to Real Madrid. And there have been other players who've been played. William Gallas comes to mind. At Banior, what's his name? There've been other players from Arsenal who've gone to Tottenham, and so forth. But this was a guy who was a free agent, was a Spurs, really was an amazing. He could have gone anywhere he wanted to go, anywhere. He would not be a pariah if he went to Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, if you wanted to stay in London. But of all the clubs you go to, the best way to put this is the club legend that I think of from Arsenal. My favorite Arsenal player that I ever watched was Thierry Henry. It would be if Thierry Henry was a free agent and signed with Tottenham Hotspur, okay, and then went and helped Tottenham win the championship at the Emirates, because I believe by the time Henry left Arsenal, they were playing at the Emirates. That's probably what I would look at, would be on par with that. It's something that you'd say would never happen, and then it happened. But this was huge.
And the reason for choosing Arsenal hurt the Spurs fans even more. Quote, David Dein made me feel protected. He was going to help and promised to be there for me. Come to us, he said, and you will be part of our family. We will protect you. End quote.
Another thing that he said was, I wanted to win the title at North London. I wanted to win the Premier League title at White Hart Lane. So that's why I joined Arsenal. Okay, I mean, that's taking a real dig at your rival.
Of our family, straight up trading the family you were born into, despite him starting his youth career at West Ham, of course, trading the team that made him for their most bitter rivals. When Arsenal next visited White Hart Lane, the Spurs faithful had balloons with the word Judas for the returning center back.
I've always loved it because I loved when he went to Arsenal. But now looking at it, I'm trying to take an objective view. I kind of see it from Tottenham's point of view. And yeah, I guess I have to look at it from your point of view and say, if you're still upset, or if you remember that, yeah, you're right. He did stab you in the back. There's nothing to, that. I remember. Oh my God, yeah. You can even watch on YouTube when he first came out in Arsenal colours at White Hart Lane. Oh my goodness.
Hell, even Campbell's brother, Tony, didn't support his younger brother after the move. He was spotted in the stands, chanting along with the rest of them. Even worse, Spurs fans then had to watch as Campbell went on to win 2 league titles, something Spurs hadn't done and still haven't done since 1961, and 2 FA Cups. Of course, this built up the animosity between the two sets of supporters even more, with Arsenal fans boasting about how even a Spurs youth player that went on to captain the side would rather wear the red of their North London rivals. That said, Spurs have gotten the better of Arsenal on a few notable occasions, most of which coming in cup competitions. For example, there's the 2008 League Cup semi-final in which Spurs defeated Arsenal 5-1, the first time that Spurs had beaten Arsenal since 1999, as Spurs went on to win the League Cup. The most famous victory for Spurs fans was the 1991 FA Cup semi-final in which Spurs, led by Gary Lineker and Paul Gascoigne, defeated Arsenal 3-1 at Wembley Stadium on April 14th, a special date for Spurs fans, which some refer to as St. Hotspur Day. Arsenal have a saint day of their own that I'll get to in a moment. During the 90s, it was a bit of a one-sided rivalry, as Arsenal were leaps ahead of Spurs.
Yeah, during the when I was a fan watching when I first able to see all the games, Arsenal went on a huge tear through when Arsene Wenger got there.
Regards to results. But as the rivals improved in the mid-2000s, Arsenal were forced to become more aware of Spurs and saw them as a genuine threat at times, leading to the reinvigoration of the London derby, not only on a fan cultural level, but at a sporting level as well.
Both of them in the past 20 years have made it to the finals of the Champions League. Arsenal made it to the final, lost 1-0, or 2-1 to Barcelona. Saul Campbell scored in that game, but had to play most of the game down a man. And Tottenham made it to the Champions League final, lost 2-0 to Liverpool.
It made the rivalry
in 2018, 2019, around there.
Less one-sided. Suddenly, Spurs were less of a banter club, though some of the Arsenal fans were loath to admit it. Their reasoning? St. Totteringham's Day. Started in 2002, St. Totteringham's Day is sort of like Easter in that it doesn't have a specific date associated with it. Instead,
it basically is the day whenever Arsenal would finish the league in front of Tottenham. They would finish. Now, since that hasn't happened, I don't believe it's happened in 3 or 4 years now, and didn't happen this past season because Tottenham beat Arsenal at the top 4 and beat them 3-0 closer to the end of the season. Now, from a Tottenham standpoint, you probably would look at that as justice because Arsenal pulled out of a game the game should have been played, I think, in February, but Arsenal pulled out of it because of COVID, and it ended up being played near the end of the season and in May, and that led to Tottenham making it to the top 4 and playing in the Champions League. Arsenal's playing, in Europa League football, and Tottenham's playing Champions League football.
St. Totteringham's Day falls on the day that it is mathematically impossible for Spurs to finish above Arsenal in the Premier League standings. For 2 seasons in a row, however, Spurs have finished above Arsenal. St. Totteringham's Day cancelled. So, there you have it. To sum things up, the first sort of point of contention or the root of the rivalry, so to speak, between these two clubs. Cringy saying the title. But it was, of course, the fact that Arsenal moved in on Tottenham's territory. Unlike other derbies, this isn't a class division or a religious division. As time went on, the invaders were undoubtedly the more successful club, which led to a bit of a lopsided rivalry in that, while they both hated each other, Arsenal have always been able to boast more titles and more derby wins to their name, thus not having to worry so much about the rivals and their adopted home of North London. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, then a like is always appreciated, and if you're new and want to join our growing community for all sorts of content, including live streams, etc., then just hit that subscribe button. It's free. Once again, my name's Adrian, this is Arona TV, and enjoy the derby.
Yeah, I enjoyed this video. I don't know how many people are going to enjoy this video like I did. But he skipped over quite a few things. I mean, I remember the Spurs in the 1960s were an incredible team, and there's other videos on the roots of the rivalry between Tottenham and Arsenal, where how the fans look at it. And there's when you listen to Tottenham fans, at least when I watch some of those videos, because there's like a 3-part video. There's a guy there, I don't know what his name is, seemed kind of whiny to me, but that's okay. That is what it is. But it is a rivalry. It is a twice a year happening North London derby. Right now, I think both teams, even though Tottenham made it to the Champions League, Arsenal did not, I think they're really pretty even teams. I think Tottenham's had a little bit of a better transfer window, but I think Arsenal can catch up. I think it's going to have some good games this season. Other things that remind me is Theo Walcott, with the 2-0, honestly, I think that was an FA Cup game. But, these teams are not, these teams do not like each other. The fans do not like each other. And, it is what it is. But, please click like, share, and subscribe for this. And please click like, share, and subscribe for me. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Have a good day.